taking place tonight and is being televised by the BBC World Service, that Tariq Ramadan holds a chair at Oxford University. I put it to you because of these very facts, that you are being welcomed, that you are being integrated, that you are being respected. You are not a problem.
Okay, let's just take... There'll be another opportunity after we've heard our next two speakers to take more questions from the floor. Thank you. Now, arguing for the motion is Petra Steenen. She's a former Dutch diplomat who has worked in the Arab world, and indeed she's written about her experiences there. She's a very active human rights campaigner with a particular interest, amongst other things, in women's rights. So, Petra Steenen, the floor is yours.
Some people feel that in my country, Islamization has already succeeded. I think the question tonight is whether we in Europe are actually capable of looking beyond the color of religion. I was in Egypt during the 90s. Egypt has known about terrorism attacks long before 9/11, 7/7, or the murder of Theo van Gogh in the Netherlands. They suffered big time. And yes, there were a lot of things which I was critical of when I lived in the Arab world. Reading the Arab Human Development Reports, they sum it up very precisely. There is still a lack of freedom, there's a lack of knowledge, and the lack of participation of women is really worrying in those societies. The question, though, is, are those wrongs really connected to Islam? My friends like Douglas would say, yes, it is. A lot of my friends in the Netherlands say so as well. And they warn me not to be naive. They say that the danger now is among us, like an Islamic Trojan horse. I wonder, though, and this would be a question for me to Douglas, what do we do with the people who don't want to adhere to your ideas of enlightenment? Do we send them away? What do we do? Do we re-educate them? So I'm wondering, are we actually addicted to our own stereotypes? Over and over again, we hear the same warning. We're sleeping, Europe will turn into a certain Eurabia, Islam is about to take over. I believe that this one-sided, one-dimensional story is really failing Muslims in Europe miserably. I'm a regular speaker at in the Netherlands about Islam, about my experiences in the Arab world, and I sense a genuine curiosity among the general people in the Netherlands not to believe what Geert Wilders says about Islam, not to believe what Douglas Murray just said about Islam. They want to know the other story. And yes, you've all heard about Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I'm sure. And yes, she was a pioneer. But the other people, Ahmed Abu Talib, the Barack Obama of the Netherlands, the mayor in Rotterdam, Famile Arslan, a female lawyer wearing a headscarf, she got on the front cover of Time magazine. And my best example would be Ibrahim Afellay. He's a soccer player, and I wish he would score the winning goal at the World Championship. I'm sure that he will be 100% one of us. I am inspired by people who dare to dream. And I believe that we would definitely fail Muslims in Europe, but even, not only Muslims, every single citizen in Europe, if we continue to judge people on the basis of the color of their skin, the color of religion, and not by the stature of their character. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petra Steenen. Now, our final speaker, arguing against the motion, is Flemming Rose, the Danish journalist. He's the opinion and culture editor of Jyllands-Posten, which is Denmark's biggest newspaper, and it was he, of course, who commissioned those very controversial cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad back in 2005 that sparked protests amongst Muslims right across the world. I see you're in the launch pad, Flemming Rose. Your time starts now.
In fact, I'm not going to talk about cartoons tonight. I've done that for the past 5 years, and I'm a little bit fed up with it. But I'm going to share with you my afterthoughts after having lived that experience 5 years ago and still experiencing the afterwaves of what happened. I don't want to generalize and I don't want to essentialize Muslims. In fact, I believe that every Muslim is first and foremost an individual endowed with certain rights and obligations. And as this serves, to my mind, as a foundation of liberal democracies in Europe, this is a very important distinction and caveat when it comes to the phrasing of the motion. It means that the citizens of Europe, they enjoy certain rights like freedom of expression, freedom of religion, equal treatment before the law, and secular government. It also means that Muslims, as other Europeans, have the freedom to choose. But unfortunately, within too many Muslim communities in Europe, European Muslims are not able to exercise the rights they are being granted by European governments and societies. And I see that as a big problem. So on the one hand, in a liberal democracy, you enjoy the right to freedom of expression, you enjoy the right to freedom of religion, which includes the right to leave your religion. You treat women and men equally, but at the same time, Muslims within their own communities are not able to exercise that right. And it's controversial across Muslim communities in Europe to leave Islam. And you have ex-Muslims or dissenting Muslims within their own communities who are living in fear because they are being accused of apostasy. Apostasy, according to Islamic law, being a capital crime. So if a Muslim decides to leave his religion, he risks social exclusion, stigmatization, or maybe even worse. So I ask, who is failing its Muslim population? May I remind you that it is human beings who enjoy human rights, not religions, cultures, and certain versions of history. And I do believe in the notion of universal human rights, and I think that this notion has served Europeans, Muslims, and non-Muslims well, one consequence being that the Muslim citizens of Europe, in fact, are enjoying more freedom and more rights than any Muslim in any Muslim majority country. So I don't believe that Europe is failing its Muslim population, as the motion claims, and therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon you to vote against the motion. Thank you.
Flemming Rose, thank you very much. So you've heard all our speakers, and we're going to hear some points, comments, questions now from our audience here. But our audience were polled as they were coming in. This is how our audience here in Cadogan Hall in central London have voted. For the motion, Europe is failing its Muslims, 237 for the motion. Against the motion, 220. And the don't knows were 218. So this is so exciting because it means, audience, panel, there's all to play for. And incidentally, just before I carry on, I should say, you can download a free briefing on the issues being debated here today if you want to. You can go to www.intelligencesquared.com and just follow the instructions. All right, so let's hear some brief comments, please, and questions from our audience. Okay, the lady there, thank you.
I have one question for the opposition. Although most in this hall would agree that the human rights that are accorded to all of our citizens, Muslim and non-Muslim, are greater than those in the Arab nations, do you think that we have failed Muslims by allowing the language of Islam as against us to propagate on and on since particularly since 9/11, but even before that, and therefore allow our own Muslims within our own countries to feel as if they are part of the enemy rather than part of our own countries.
Okay. Okay, I want to take very quick ones then. Okay, this lady here.
I just want to make a quick comment to the throwaway comments made by Douglas Murray about Muslim women and Islam and its way it treats women. And I think that Muslim women are quite capable of speaking for themselves. And I think the sort of myths people like you put in the public arena, and I've heard other similar arguments from BNP and all that kind of stuff, they think it justifies their argument by saying, well, Islam treats 50% of its population in a really derogatory and whatever way that you like to explain it.
You've got a mic. No, that gentleman there, is it? Yeah.
Surely it's Islamic countries and nations and religion who are letting down many Muslims. The lack of correct investment in education, social justice and welfare in their own countries, which has caused so much social migration to Europe, which wouldn't have happened. But surely this lack of contribution to education and ability, especially of women, of freedom, has stopped this growing and contributing to Europe as much as they could.
Let's just take this young lady here with the headscarf, and then we'll come to our panel.
I'm a British female. I love this country, and I give this country. Now you're calling me a problem. I don't think I am. I think you are. Second point is, as a Muslim female, okay, my parents might not let me go somewhere late at night because people are racist to me. They tell me to go back home, and they hurt me. I got hit by 2 white guys, and they laughed at me because I'm a Scafi, okay? Last point is to Mr. Fleming, about the point where you said about the religion, changing religion. Every person has the right to. No one says anything about that. But if you had a daughter or a son that wanted to become a Muslim, would you be happy about that? I don't think so.
Why don't you just address that? Would you mind if, I don't know if you have children, but indeed, would you mind if they became Muslim converts?
I mean, it's their choice. And I can tell you, I am...
But that wasn't what she asked. Would you mind? She said, would you mind?
No, I wouldn't. Of course not. I mean, I am married to an immigrant myself who comes from another community than the one I come from. So, in fact, I have been living, this kind of experience for the past 30 years. And yes, there were some members of my family who were quite critical about that, but it was my choice.
All right. Hypothetically speaking, Douglas Murray, what would you say to that lady?
No, of course it wouldn't bother me. I mean, I would hope that if somebody has access... Look, what Fleming and I are arguing for is that people have the right to access all of the kind of opinions, all of the knowledge that they can. That means, among other things, having, for instance, access to all of the criticism that should be written of the Quran and of Islam. And if they weigh up after knowing all of these things and having access to all of them that they would like to become Muslim, I don't have a problem with that.
All right. Good. You answered the question. Petra?
When my daughter was born in '98, I called her Soraya, which is the Arabic name for Pleiades, because I felt that she needed to have a present for the rest of her life. After 9/11, people asked me whether I had regretted giving her an Arabic name. And I felt sorry for the person who asked that question.
That there's prejudice against...
No, the point I'm making is, and I think it's the point the lady is making as well, that the fact that people are called Muhammad is probably, in the perception of many, putting them in a disadvantage. And of course, I totally disagree.
Okay. You want to come because I want to get some response to what we heard out, some of the comments our audience made.
I'd just like to make a comment on one of the cases that Petra made, which was about Ahmed Abu Taleb, a very distinguished public figure in Holland. What you failed to mention when you mentioned him as a great success story of the Netherlands, which I agree he is that after the murder of Theo van Gogh in 2004, he had to go under 24-hour protection because his name was found on a hit list from a radical cell nearby. We cannot simply take, Petra, the terrific success stories and ignore things like that. It is no small thing that a Muslim politician who speaks out should be targeted for assassination in his home country of the Netherlands.
There are many Muslims and Muslims.
Yeah, Tariq Ramadan, we get the point, yeah.
Once again, I think that you are taking one story and then
it was the one she took.
No, it is, and many Muslims around the world and in the Netherlands were against that and attacked the small groups that were saying this. And this is the case today in Europe. The discourse that you have is helping to nurture this sense of alienation and not to let the Muslims feel that they are at home. And out of the questions that we got from here, people are saying, you are welcome